Hello, and welcome back to the Ray Report, where we're talking politics, current events, and kind of whatever's on my mind. And today, I want to jump into some of the current events and topics that have happened since we met last week, namely this special counsel report that has been dropped on Joe Biden. Essentially, he was being investigated for his mishandling of classified documents from when he was vice president, and the special counsel or the special investigator found that his memory was so bad that he's unfit to sit in front of a jury, that the jury would just feel so bad for him and they wouldn't be able to he wouldn't be able to remember anything to convey to the jury. The special investigator spent hours with him and concluded that Biden couldn't even remember when he was vice president and couldn't remember when his son had passed away. So in the report, he said his memory was so bad that he was unfit to sit in front of a jury. So that very night, and President Biden doesn't ever do this. I mean, they call him Hiding Biden for a reason because he doesn't give press conferences and a lot of interviews. But that night, which was Thursday of last week, he was forced to come out and basically say that his memory is perfectly good and he remembers everything. And while he was saying this, he was making mistakes in his speech, misremembering Mexico for Egypt, and was just showing really how bad his memory really is. He was angry, which is classic old people, like when they get dementia kind of stuff. So that was real laughable. And then the next day, everybody went into spin mode on the left. And now people are talking about who's going to replace Biden on the ticket. When are they going to replace Biden on the ticket? Is it going to be Gavin Newsom? Is it going to be Michelle Obama? Gretchen Whitker, I think her name is, or whatever her name is, from the governor from Michigan. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. David Axelrod has come out and said there's no way it'll be Michelle Obama. She hates politics. But then again, you have other people who are guaranteeing it's going to be her. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's pretty clear what's going to happen on the Republican side, and that's going to be Trump who's going to secure the nomination. And we'll get into that here in just a moment. But there's some other things that happened last week that I kind of wanted to talk about as well. Namely, it was the Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin interview where Carlson went over to Russia and interviewed their president, the Russian President Putin. And I don't really know what to think about that interview yet. I did watch it, still trying to process it. There was, my first instinct was just, is Vladimir Putin just the whole time, is this just propaganda? Is he trying, what's he trying to do? I just don't really trust him, right? And so it's just kind of trying to read through things and trying to understand what he really means. And obviously there's a translation gap as well, so that kind of makes it even more difficult. Subsequently, Carlson said that he has to take the guy at his word for everything. Believes that he's super sincere. That he went into this deep history between Ukraine and Russia to kind of show how tight the bond is between Ukraine and Russia. And in this interview, he mentioned that, after the Soviet Union broke up, that subsequently, I think when Bill Clinton was president, that Putin offered to join NATO. He wanted to make a deal where Russia would be part of NATO, and NATO only exists to protect the West versus Russia. So had that, these two countries made an alliance, there would be no need for NATO, theoretically. But anyways, Putin says that Clinton and the U.S. negotiators rebuffed his offer, and so it just makes you think, like, is America just always trying to be at war? And why is America always trying to be at war? Is it because, again, they believe it's good for the economy and it's good for the people of the United States? And I just fundamentally disagree with that. I think that we should focus here on the United States, that we shouldn't be like at war always. It seems to me like America might, like a lot of other countries look at America like we're especially in the Middle East, like we're the terrorists, right? Like we're over there bombing people and, giving all these, the Ukraine a ton of money. We're giving Israel a ton of money to just wipe people, really trying to wipe people off the face of the earth. Like that's what it comes down to. And so it just makes you wonder, what's the obsession in America with war? Which is one of the things I think Trump has right and why he's so popular. which is, I want to pivot now to the primaries in South Carolina that are coming up on the 24th of February. Trump's running against Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's home state is South Carolina, and right now, most recent poll that I've seen, Trump's up about 40, 42 points. He's getting about 65% of the vote, while Haley's getting about 23% of the vote. So he's crushing her in her home state, and he has endorsements from the two senators and the sitting governor. And people in South Carolina just absolutely love Trump and for what he did, during his first, 4 years. So it's going to be clear that Trump's going to win that primary. Nikki Haley should drop out. She's killing her career. The longer that she attacks Trump, the more that she alienates a big base of people who will just never like her again because she says mean things or stupid things about Trump. So the reality is, like, she's killing her political future. She's never going to hold national office like a senator of South Carolina or anything like that. She's not going to be appointed to any cabinet positions if Trump wins the presidency. She probably will go back to the corporate world and sit on boards, maybe Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Halliburton, like Dick Cheney. And just like Vivek Ramaswamy said, and that's how she'll make her money, by lobbying for these huge corporations to stay at war. And her husband's a military vet, so obviously, we thank him for his service and all that stuff. But just the constant warmongering and going to war, I think, is what turns people off, especially the new Republican people in the party. Some of these people who are younger, who just don't want to be at war, would rather have those resources reappropriated here in the United States to help them out, because life seems pretty difficult for a lot of people in this time. So that's coming up on February 24th. Nikki Haley ruining her career. Ron DeSantis, he took second in the Iowa caucuses and immediately dropped out and endorsed Trump. So I think he might have a future, probably not as president, but maybe as a senator, potentially somebody in the cabinet, or somebody that Trump leans on pretty closely there. But Haley's career is pretty much toast after this, because she just won't. She's in fact claiming that Donald Trump's trying to keep her off the ballot now. I mean, it's this kind of stuff that it's just ruining her political career. So anyways, I want to pivot now to who I think Trump is going to choose as his vice president in the 2024 election campaign. Me personally, I think he's going to choose Vivek Ramaswamy. And here's why. Obviously, Vivek is aligned with him in the MAGA, Make America Great Again, America First agenda, which is important. And I think Ramaswamy could take over if something bad happened to Trump, for God forsake, he died or was assassinated. I think Ramaswamy could step in and be commander in chief day one. And I think he would surround himself with a lot of talented people, so he wouldn't have to just, rely on his quote unquote experience alone, because he doesn't have a lot of experience, which is why I think it's important that Trump does bring him into the fold, because Trump's a one-term president, like it or not. It's these next 4 years. If he wins, great, 4 years, but then what? Who's going to carry on his agenda? And that's why I think it should be Vivek, because he's already aligned really close to him. He can sit there and be vice president, get a lot of, good experience, help the country in areas like, for example, he could work on the border, something that Harris never did, the current vice president never did. He can help in a lot of different ways, but also get that experience. And so when the 4 years of Trump is over and people are happy and things are good, then it would be the natural, carrying of the torch of the Make America Great Again, the America First agenda, just by handing it off from the current president to the vice president. And then you have another potential 8 years of that agenda, America First agenda, in Vivek. And maybe at that point, you would get Ron DeSantis as Vivek's vice president. DeSantis at that point could have a little bit more experience. Maybe he's working in the cabinet, working closely with the Trump administration, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of potential and possibility for that scenario. Trump picking the guy because not only is he qualified and he's well-spoken and he can go out there and bring in the younger voters and people who aren't necessarily attracted to Trump but are interested in Trump and his message. He could bring those people into the mix. So he is, widening the pie, if you will. But at the same time, I think the most important thing is he carries Trump's agenda forward even after Trump's 4 years here. So that's my take on who Trump's going to pick for the vice president. I sure as hope he does, because America does have some huge challenges in front of it. And that's what I want to talk about next. Some of the things that America is facing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And obviously, everybody knows, uh, immigration, that's a huge issue. And that is a huge issue. And that's something that we're going to have to deal with. And everybody knows about our involvement in the Middle East, whether that's funding Ukraine and giving all the money to Ukraine and giving all the support to Israel and paying for all that. But one thing that I don't think is being talked about a lot is our debt. Our country has $34 trillion of debt. And that's going up by $2 trillion every single year, because that's what seems to be the annual budget of the US government, about $2 trillion. So every year we're going into debt $2 trillion more. So at this pace, we're at 34 now. In 3 years, we'll be at $40 trillion in debt. And just right now, at the $34 trillion debt level, our interest payments on that debt are going to be about $1 trillion per year. So I just said our budget's about $2 trillion a year, and our interest payment's going to be $1 trillion a year. In other words, 50% of our federal budget is going to be spent on retiring debt. It's unsustainable. And at some point, this is going to come home, and the chickens are going to come home and roost. And this is why it's critical we stop spending so much money on these foreign wars and stop just printing money to fund what's called pork barrel spending, just pet projects. People's in their districts throwing in, hey, give us an extra, it seems like 1 billion, 5 billion. Billions are small numbers anymore. It used to be millions, now it's billions. 100 billion going to the Ukraine? I mean, get out of here. 100 billion, that's 10% of 1 trillion. That's 10% of 1 trillion. And we're just like, no, let's give it to the Ukraine for free. We'll borrow it and we'll give it to the Ukraine. I mean, the stuff is getting out of control. It's jeopardizing our Social Security. I know Trump will probably talk about never raising the age, and he might be in a position where he can say that and kick the can down the road. But the next president, they're not going to be able to say they're not going to be able to raise the age. And Medicaid and Medicare, like those entitlements are going to have to get, changed somehow, some way. Like they're going to have to get brought down, because there's no way we can keep the entitlements up and the debt payment and our military spending and funding all these wars and funding all the illegal immigrants that are coming into the country. It's just impossible. It's unsustainable what we're doing right now. So not only is it important that we get a president who's serious about this stuff, we need a president we need an idea that can stay in power for 8 to 12 years. That's how a good idea will get seen through. And that's why I'm hoping Trump wins and picks Vivek as his vice president and has such a good 4 years. And then Vivek can carry on that torch for the next 8 years. So we can have a good 12 years of, maybe one way out of this debt is by growing the economy so fast for everybody, for lots of people, for everybody, not just the rich people, not just asset prices getting, houses, stocks, just assets, farmland, just those prices going through the roof, Bitcoin, not just assets, but also incomes. And it's not through minimum wage, raising a minimum wage to $20 or $50. It's through getting people working, innovation. It's through the things that made America great. So with that, I'd like to thank you for checking out this episode of The Ray Report. And if you like this kind of content and you'd like to see me make more, please like it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.